Dr. Graves, and what a warm introduction, and how nice it is to get to know all of you and the diversity that we have in this room, from horticulture to medicine to animal science, ag education, biological engineering. I'm super interested in following your paths. So after today, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You got a wonderful introduction to networking today, and I would love to see the journey that you take after tonight. I'm really excited about this talk and honored to share some lessons that I've learned with you. I teach 4 classes here at NC State. I teach career exploration as well as career readiness and professional development. And when Dr. Graves invited me tonight, she said, what I want you to do is an empowering message to encourage students to reach their full potential. And I said, well, no tall order at all there. And I got to thinking, what can I say? Because I teach entire 15-week courses on these topics. So I get 30 minutes with you tonight, and I decided to talk to you about a recent journey that I went on. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the experience that I had, and if you have ever felt like you're not good enough, smart enough, for me, it was young enough. If you have ever felt scared, like you're stepping out of your comfort zone, if you've ever compared yourself to other people and wondered why you don't fit in, you might be able to relate to a few of the things that I'm going to share with you today. So I have a photograph up here of the cast that I had the pleasure of performing in Hairspray with. Were you in the audience?
Yes, I was.
Awesome! Fantastic. And you realize one of the stars is sitting at the front table, Jen. What was your role, Jen?
I played Shelly, one of the nicest kids in town.
She is a super nice kid. And have any of you seen the movie Hairspray? If you didn't get a chance to watch it when it was on campus. And this was our curtain call. We were standing up in front of completely sold out 4-night run of a standing ovation, and everyone in the audience was screaming for us. Now I'll tell you, when I saw my name on the cast list, I said, am I going to sign for this package? I'm not sure I'm worthy, but I'm so glad, because all of the fear that I experienced and all of the confusion, because everyone in the cast seemed to be getting the dance moves so much faster than I was, and all of the uncomfortableness was replaced with pride and the most exhilarating feeling that I've ever had. So there's nothing like having a standing ovation. Everyone has a story. You all have wonderful stories that are starting today. And I've got a few photographs up here of people that have helped create my story. Because I wouldn't be standing in front of you today if it wasn't for 2 amazingly loving parents who absolutely embraced everything I did and loved me with every fiber of their being. They are not alive today, but they're in my heart every moment of the day. And I have a fantastic new family with my husband of 31 years and my 2 daughters. So I like to start my presentations giving a little bit of a human touch. In addition to what I do in my personal life, I have this amazingly rewarding career here at NC State. So I actually started over in Cowles in Patterson Hall. So the work that you're all doing is near and dear to my heart. And I have photographs up here of the students that I work with, and they're standing on my front lawn, and you might even be able to zoom in and see me with my little puppy Mojo. And I invite my students into my house because they're a really important part of my life. And I have some fantastic highlights of periods of my time that have been a big part of my story. So we all have a why. And for me, my why is I'm here because I love helping other people find their purpose. And I love the introduction you gave to me today. It was really very warm for my heart. And one of the things I did was I created a leap list. Have you all heard of bucket lists before? And it's kind of morbid to me to think, oh, I gotta do this before I die. So I came up with the bucket list idea. Let's tweak it a little bit into a leap list. What do we want to do? And one of the things was to star in a musical. I had not been on a stage in 38 years. Do the math. I was very young in high school, and I dared myself to do it. And that was one of the things I'm going to talk to you about today, is to keep your life energizing. So yes, students, what I did was I made a dare with myself. I said, I dare you to audition. And so this was a scary thing for me because I told myself, I might make a fool of myself. I might be rejected. There are over 100 college students who are all under the age of 23. And it was absolutely uncomfortable to push myself to do that. I didn't even know if faculty could audition. And so I emailed, being the bold woman that I am, a YouTube of myself to one of the directors in the theater department, and I said, can I have an audition? And she said, come on out. So a lot of times we hold ourselves back. And I like to keep this quote in mind, that our life is not a dress rehearsal. This is the only moment that there is. And we have to pay attention to the things that energize us, and we have to seek more of them in life. So if the fear was going to hold you back from anything that you're thinking about doing in your life, I would encourage you to go for it, because you'll be much more likely to regret that you hadn't done it than to actually do it. So we transformed from rehearsal to the actual day of the show, where we were behind bars in our big doll house. And this for me was a huge risk. So when you think about taking a risk, is there a voice in your head that says, my deficiencies might be exposed? I probably shouldn't do this. What do you say to yourself? Or do you say, this is going to be a stretch for me, but I think I'm going to go for it? The fear of rejection can hold us back. The voice inside of us can hold us back. And in my mind, when I think about the risks, I think about the fact that when you take a risk, you have to be patient with yourself. Because you won't be perfect at it, but it's never, ever too late to follow a dream. So I want to tell you a little bit more about the journey to get there. And as I'm thinking about the journey, I'm hearkening back to the audition. So when we came for the audition, we all had numbers on our chests. My number was 31. And the audition had 3 parts. We had singing, we had reading the script, monologue, and interacting in dialogue. And then, the one that scared me the most, dancing on stage. Raise your hand if you feel comfortable dancing on stage. I knew I had at least one. I am super impressed. So I was not comfortable dancing anywhere. And so what I did in the audition was I hid in the back row. And I went back and watched all the dance moves on the Instagram feed over and over again. And I realized what's really hard for me is to flip it, because I'm looking at them facing me, but my left hand is doing what their right hand is doing. Super challenging. And I tell you that story to say, if you've ever been in a situation where you think everyone else knows what they're doing, and I'm the only one that doesn't, it's super hard. I had a student in my class yesterday I was telling the story to, and she said, I'm in this biological illustration class. Some of you may be in it. She said, everyone in that class is an artist. I'm the only one that's not. And I said, Hannah, but you're doing your best. So we did the dance number. I felt like I got about 3/4 of it, okay. And the last quarter of it, I had no idea what I was doing. Absolutely just smiled my way through it. We stood after the dance audition. The directors are in the audience looking at us with spotlights shining. We're out of breath, sweating, heart flipping and pounding, and they talk about us. And we all stand on the stage. And then can't really hear what they're saying. But loudly, one of the directors says, number 31, come up front. And I looked down, and there was my number, 31. So my heart flipped. I stepped up about 2 rows where I could still see the dance moves if I misstepped by one of my auditioning people. And the next voice said, all the way up front. So I could either sprint off the stage or go to the front of the stage, which I did. So, truth be told, that was one of the scariest moments of my life. And you see we're all wearing wigs. Sometimes it's hard to even pick out who I am, even though I'm so much older than the students on the stage. But I think you might recognize the next one that I have on here. And we've got an example of a beautiful big blue wig. And what I want to say on this slide is defy the odds. Do something really scary. Embrace your missteps along the way. Absolutely. I did not do that dance perfectly, but somehow someone saw something in me. So that made me very happy. So the next thing, the message that I thought about was it was over, okay? My fears were over. I was proud of myself. My name was on the cast list, and it was happening. After 2 weeks, I'd convinced myself it wasn't going to be happening. And I'm pretty confident in my life. I've been on the planet for many decades. But when I'm out of my comfort zone, it's not so easy. So some of the things that I thought about that might relate to you today is the notion of not being enough. So I want to give you a second to think about that. What have you ever told yourself, I am not blank enough? Now there's lots of different words that we can put in there. It might be you're not old enough, you're not smart enough, you're not quick enough, maybe you're not cool enough, you're not confident enough, you're not outgoing enough, you're not pretty enough. Whatever you say to yourself is that self-limiting belief. And I want you to eliminate that dialogue from your life. And realize that you should sign for the package and that people will see something in you too. So this is the next message. Believe in your worth. And stop, please stop comparing yourself to others. Because you can look around your classroom and go, they all got an A on that test and I didn't. But you are the only one living your journey. So over and over again, I said, man, I'm not young enough to be in this show. We rehearsed till 11 o'clock. I was normally in bed by 9. I'm telling you, I am just literally telling you the honest truth. So oftentimes we feel like we have these weights on our back. This is, I can't do it, and I'm going to make a mistake, and, I have to be perfect at this. If you have the perfection addiction, I can see it on your face. I have to do it exactly right. But actually, some of our missteps and failures are where we learn the most. So I started listening to this whole notion of this language of dancing. And it was words I didn't even know, like ball change. I literally was completely clueless 90% of the time of our 4-hour rehearsal. I had no idea what was going on. But what I decided to do on my way home every night was call my daughter. And she was awake at 11 o'clock. She's an NC State graduate who lives up in DC now. And I would tell her these stories, and she would say, Mom, they picked you for a reason. And then I would get home, and my husband, who I told you about, of 30 years plus, would say, they saw something in you. So I really feel like leaning on our support systems is one of the most important lessons in life, because times can be really tough, and we can send ourselves the worst messages and be ready to quit and give up. But all the people that love us and are behind us will remind us of the good things about ourselves. We can be our worst critics. So there's lots and lots of emotions here. about this whole notion of fitting into this group. Because like I said, the entire cast was really young enough to be my children. And I knew I was the outsider. I knew I would have to work twice as hard as everyone else. And literally, you remember those snow days we had back in January where school was canceled? I was like, oh yes, I'm gonna spend the entire day watching this video. And I'm gonna get these steps down, which everyone else seemed to get in like 5 minutes or so. So I decided to be myself. I decided to be authentic. I decided to be genuine and not try to be someone else. And so I think in this case, this notion that you've heard before is really important because no one else can play your part in life. You're the only one. And we are all perfectly imperfect. And we are all needing to be patient with ourselves. And what I do, like I said, is I teach these career readiness classes. And I'm super good at that. Y'all give me a resume and I will critique it, and I got that down. But I put myself in a completely unfamiliar situation where I didn't know any of this. And I'm always telling my students this. Get that internship. Yes, fake it until you become it. Believe in yourself. Go for the interview. And I could completely relate to what it felt like to get yourself out of your comfort zone. But it's really important to embrace that pain. Because even today, when you started walking around this room and introducing yourself, there's a fear, isn't there? It's like, what if I get rejected? What if this person I talk to thinks that I'm a total dork and I say something really stupid and I embarrass myself? We run that risk every day. And we're going to push ourselves to go beyond that. So I know you came to the show and you remember the story. So the story of Hairspray is about integration in Baltimore in the 1960s. It's a very sensitive topic. And we watch students in this show portraying racist, stereotypical, shouting things like nappy hair and ton of lard, making fun of body image and retard, making fun of special education, and they did it so convincingly. They would apologize after scenes. They would say, I'm really sorry that I just said that to you. But what they were doing was telling a story about a time period that needed to be heard. And I was so impressed with the grace and elegance that the students did this. And then at the end, when they'd apologize, we'd stand on the stage after 4 hours and we'd listen to everything we did wrong. So at one point, I was exhausted like everybody else, and the director said, Marcy, you walked around today like you had no purpose. Whew, thick skin, but it was helpful to me because one of the things we did was we realized that we can't settle for fine in life. That taking criticism and hearing things that we're not doing well is going to inspire us to move into phenomenal. So the theater is such an amazing world. You get to hang out with people that love to wear wigs and be the center of attention and break into song. It was totally my people. And it was an amazing opportunity to just not take yourself too seriously. To just realize that, you know what, you can transform yourself. You can have fun. And that was one of the things, when you think about it, for 6 weeks we rehearsed. And it was like polishing a gemstone. Because every day the audience came, it had to have the illusion that it was brand new. And like I said, for 4 straight nights, we had that opportunity to get that standing ovation. So ups and downs, yes, absolutely. With every emotion that I felt on the struggle side of it, it was lost, scared, doubtful, frustrated, discouraged. Can anyone relate to a few of those at this stage in the semester? Feeling ya. And then, from all that hard work, it was pride, it was encouraging, it was accepted, it was strong, and it was loved. So this last one, I'm on my 10th one, that I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to read a quote before I tell you it, is the one that is the most meaningful to me. So what I said on the quote was actually from Hunter S. Thompson, and it says, "Life is not a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving in a pretty and well-preserved body, but a skid-in broadside, in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, 'Wow, what a ride.'" And skid in I did. So I encourage you not to live in fear. I encourage you to take the risks. And the last lesson, which makes me smile so much, because when I see this slide, it's every night the people that surrounded me with love, was in the end, when I look back, what matters most is who I love and who loves me. And they love me, even when I mess up. Thank you.